Malik Nabers is my number one Cornerstone Dynasty player. What's a Cornerstone Dynasty asset, you ask? It's a foundational player, 24 years or younger, that fits into any sort of build of team. Are you a championship contender? These guys are a part of your plans. Are you a rebuilding team? These guys are part of your plans. So I'm going to give you the legendary ball knowers legendary list of 12 Cornerstone Dynasty players today. So stay with me. Well, here we go. Spoiler alert, Malik Nabers is number one on this list. Malik Nabers is 22 years old. He's a ridiculously explosive playmaker. He was number one in target share with 34.9% in 2025, and he had 876 unrealized air yards. He recorded 170 targets, which is a record for a rookie, 109 receptions, which is also a record for receivers. Important that it's noted that it is for receivers and not just rookies, because we're going to talk about a guy later who's also in that mold. So Malik Nabers is my number one foundational Cornerstone Dynasty asset. My number two Cornerstone Dynasty asset is going to be breakout Bijan. So Bijan Robinson, 23 years old, my 2025 pick to be the overall RB1. We're talking about a dynamic three-down workhorse with incredible vision and agility, and he's an excellent receiver. So we're also talking about a guy who was fourth in explosive plays in 2024 with 36. He was first in weighted opportunities with 295. He was third in evaded tackles. So at 23 years old, we're talking about Bijan being the RB1. He is my RB1 in Dynasty, and he is my number two foundational Dynasty asset. Now, stay with me here, people. This is going to be a little bit spicy. Some people have Bijan as RB1. That's fine. Some people have Jahmyr Gibbs as RB1. That's also fine. I have Jahmyr Gibbs, the dynamic dynamo, the Sonic to the Sonic and Knuckles. I have him as my RB2 and my number three foundational Dynasty asset. 23-year-old Jahmyr Gibbs totaled over 1,900 yards from scrimmage in year two. He won people leagues once David Montgomery went down, and he's a shifty, basically, I've said for years that he's a Jamal Charles type of player, and we got to see that come to light as soon as David Montgomery went to injured reserve. So this is a guy that won people leagues, is absolutely just going to crush it as long as he stays healthy. The problem is Detroit signed David Montgomery to an extension, so he's tied to the team for a little bit longer, but fret not, my friends. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be incredible. It's just not going to be RB1 overall as long as David Montgomery's healthy. If Jahmyr Gibbs had this backfield to himself, he would be the RB1 in this instance. But in this exercise, we live in Earth. We live in this simulation of Earth. So he's going to be my RB2 and my number three Dynasty asset. My number four Cornerstone Dynasty asset is going to be Puka Nacua. Yes, Puka Nacua. So you're asking me, well, Devontae Adams just signed there. Shouldn't I be concerned about that? Absolutely not. In 9 healthy games where he played at least 30% of the snaps, Puka Nacua recorded 98 targets, 74 receptions for 945 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So we're talking about someone who set the rookie record, although it was fleeting, for receptions by a receiver with 106. And then he put up 1,400 yards as a receiver. So he has game-breaking ability, and he has the quarterback that's willing to hyper-target him in any situation. So Puka Nacua is my number 4 Cornerstone Dynasty asset and my wide receiver 2. So full disclosure here, guys, I really, really went back and forth about who my wide receiver 2 was going to be in these rankings. And I landed on Puka because that nearly 11 targets a game with Matthew Stafford, who's a proven kingmaker when it comes to wide receivers, is just too good to pass up on. But you know what else is really too good to pass up on? A 22-year-old, 6'3", 210-pound receiver that runs a low 4.3 that just set the world on fire in Jacksonville, and that's Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. goes for 87, 1,200, and 10 touchdowns. He was third in route win rate as a receiver and second in dominator rating in 2024, and the ceiling's only going up with Liam Cohen at the helm. So Brian Thomas Jr., my wide receiver 3 in my Cornerstone Dynasty assets, and my number 5 player. We're in the trenches now. So I'm going to give you my number 6 player, my wide receiver 4 in these Cornerstone Dynasty rankings. And if you've known me for a long time, this was a tough pill of defeat to swallow. This guy and George Pickens were flip-flops for me, and I view George Pickens as this going into 2024 but Drake London proved me absolutely wrong. He dominated in 2024. He's a big-bodied contested catch goon that has position versatility. He can line up in the slot. He can line up out wide. He absolutely dominated with 159 targets, 100 catches, 1,200 yards, 1,271 yards, and 9 touchdowns. In that last 3 games with Michael Penix in week 16 through 18, he was a man amongst boys. So we're talking about a guy with a 40.8% route win rate versus man, and number 7 in dominator rating in 2024 per player profiler stats. And he also dominated in targets per route run at over 30%, and red zone targets with 25. That was good for 3rd in the league. So my number 4 receiver and number 6 in Cornerstone Dynasty rankings is Drake London, 24 years old, Atlanta Falcons wide receiver. All right, it's been mildly spicy, a little picante so far, but now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of it. It's going to get a little bit spicy. We're talking 5 million Scoville spicy. So my number 7 player and my running back 4 in these rankings is going to be Breece Hall. Breece Hall, yes, that Breece Hall, the one that let us all down when he was drafted as the RB2 or RB3 in 2024, that Breece Hall, he's that good. So in a disappointing year, he still was number 1 in routes run amongst running backs. He was 3rd in receptions with 57, and he was top 15 in breakaway runs and yards created per touch in 2024. Now, with Tanner Engstrom coming in to implement some semblance of the Detroit offense, I think they go back to more of a gap and power scheme that fits Breece Hall much better. He averaged 4.6 yards per carry in those types of runs in 2024, as opposed to the wide zone that Nathaniel Hackett, aka Aaron Rodgers flunky, like to run in 2024. So I believe a bounce back is inherent for Breece, and even better if he gets to go to a much better situation. We're talking about a guy who was in conversation for RB1, and at just 23 years old, we're talking about a guy who could give you 3 to 4 years of production and still not hit the running back age cliff after his second contract is done. Now, my wide receiver 5 in the Cornerstone Dynasty rankings, Cornerstone Dynasty assets, foundational players, is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. So Marvin Harrison Jr., we've all been there. We were all hurt. We're all going to file a class action suit like mesothelioma against Marvin Harrison for his performance in 2024. However, before we do that, let me just hit you with a couple facts, okay? He was 7th in deep targets, 5th in unrealized air yards, and 3rd in route win rate versus man coverage. So Drew Petzing and Kyler Murray need to be included in this class action suit because they didn't do anything to help Marvin Harrison Jr. realize the generational potential that we thrust upon him as a fantasy community. So we're talking about the most complete prospect, maybe one of the only guys to get a higher receiving grade coming out as a prospect other than Jamar Chase. I'm going to see how many times I can say prospect, but we're talking about a foundational asset without question that we cannot deny. So for me, he is my number 8 player and my 5th wide receiver as a foundational dynasty asset. Coming in at number 9, we've got Devon Achane. Devon Achane, the diminutive dynamo of the Miami Dolphins, comes in now coming off of a rookie year where he was historically efficient. He showed us pass catching chops that we knew he had in the bag, but we weren't sure if it was going to come to fruition. Now, this is a guy that's incredible with Tua. Now, Tua is potentially just one concussion away from sitting in a bathtub and laughing at his fart bubbles. So we have to keep that in mind. But in the interim, we have to assume that Tua may stay healthy, may continue to have an excellent career. He's got the contract. So we're going to assume that Devon Achane is going to be awesome like he has been with Tua. So with Devon Achane, we have a guy who is 4th in weighted opportunity in 2024, 2nd in target share amongst running backs, and 4th in routes run. What did that lead to? 78 receptions for 592 yards and 12 total touchdowns in 2024. So my number 9 player and my 5th running back is going to be Devon Achane. Now, coming in at number 10, here's the deal. I don't like putting tight ends on these lists, but you can't deny what you can't deny. Brock Bowers is going to be this generation's Travis Kelce. So as Travis Kelce exits, Brock Bowers enters the scene and loudly. So he set the record for receptions by a rookie with 112, coming within 4 receptions of tying Zach Ertz's record of 116. And this is just the surface. So he was 4th among tight ends in unrealized air yards with 325. So we're talking about a guy who paced the position and broke a rookie record in receiving yards, and he had 325 unrealized air yards. He was first in yards after the catch with 596. So you like athletic tight ends that can create after the catch, but also he's going to dominate the middle of the field. So Brock Bowers is the generational talent that we thought he was, and he comes in at number 10 on the list. The 22-year-old tight end cannot be denied. At number 11, we've got a guy who's never taken a snap in the NFL. And guess what? I don't care. When generational prospects occur, we have to do generational things. So my number 11 player and my number 6 running back on this list is going to be Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty, the Boise State running back who's going to get first-round capital. He's the guy. I mean, he had 151 missed tackles forced, which is the most in the history of PFF. He came within an earshot of breaking Barry Sanders' all-time single-season record. Now, granted, Barry Sanders' stats did not include postseason, whereas Ashton Jeanty's did, but that's okay. Who cares? This is a guy that is incredible. You struggle for comps for him because he's so slippery and so dynamic. We don't have combine measurables. We don't have a 40 time, but just turn on the tape and he shows you everything you need to see. So Ashton Jeanty, 5'9", 215 pounds, comes in as my number 6 running back and my number 11 Cornerstone Dynasty asset. Last but not least, we've got your favorite slot receiver's favorite slot receiver, except he's not just a slot receiver, guys. The 22-year-old wide receiver came in to a situation that was ripe for the taking, and he took everything for what it was worth. So Ladd McConkey comes in. He has 112 targets, 82 receptions, 1,149 yards, and 7 touchdowns in 2024 in basically stepping into the role that they hoped Quentin Johnston could fill as a primary target for Justin Herbert. Now, we're talking about a guy who was 8th in passer rating when targeted with over 120 passer rating when targeted, and he was 5th in contested catch rate. Yes, that Ladd McConkey, the guy that we dubbed incorrectly as a slot receiver. So his comps are closer to Garrett Wilson per player profiler than anything else. However, he's so much more gifted, and the ceiling is the roof. So Ladd McConkey rounds out our list. 6 wide receivers, 5 running backs, 1 tight end. That gives you 12 Cornerstone Dynasty assets that are going to be a part of your team's plans. Players 24 years or younger that fit into any mold of team. This has been a legendary list. I'm the legendary ball knower. Please, if you made it to the end of the video, like, comment, subscribe, give us more chances to give you more content. I'm the legendary ball knower, and I'm out.